And let me tell you something funny about Jessica Bradley.
Do tell me.
Now,
welcome to Loving Kindness Every Day, where you will hear everyday language such as 4-letter, 5-letter, or words that your mother might call profanity. Please be advised.
Before we get started, a shout out with lots of love to Anthony and a poem for Jocelyn
I
Vaughn.
felt divinely inspired to say these things, and I feel them so strongly in my spirit that, Jocelyn, maybe you need to hear me say them, and I want you to know I mean them so much that I'm saying them in front of the entire world, because this is how I really feel about you, Jocelyn Vaughn. You are so needed and valuable and supportive in the community, and for me, Jocelyn V, you have helped me so much, so many times, over and over, and your voice is stronger than thunder, like the Thunder Brothers from a mother. You are crafted perfectly like no other. No, not made to be a lover, but your soul is the lover of souls. Your stretch, it reaches, it strengthens and teaches. You are sweet inside like peaches, so it's your sweet soul that teaches boundaries. Because you can't go giving that sweetness to all. Pearls and pigs and all. Anyway, I had to share that. That is for Jocelyn Vaughn. And for all of y'all who are, there's so many people that I hold in my heart with Saprea and being at the retreat and the work that Saprea does. It's so important. It saved me. I also, this weird thing happened when I was at the Capitol. I was at the state legislature talking to my friend, the politician Sam Park. So you hear a little bit of his voice, and we're going to hear from him as well later on as our show continues, as we unfold this journey. But, I just want to take this moment to kind of say to a few people who are really on my heart. I want to say to you, Tammy, I love you. I want to tell Andrew that I love you and that I see you. And I want to just say thank you to Christian and to Daryl and to Louise and Rio and just so many people who've been loving and interesting in my life. And I thank you guys all for being you. And for the millions of Davids, too. And then I woke up to a text message.
and let me tell you something funny about Jessica Bradley.
Do tell me.
Now,
Welcome to Loving Kindness Every Day, where you will hear everyday language such as 4-letter, 5-letter, or words that your mother might call profanity. Please be advised.
It must have been the day before yesterday that we spoke? Or was it, we didn't speak, was it yesterday? That was
it was the day before. I think it was Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah, there it was. Okay, I was like, I know, I was at the state legislature, actually, when you called me.
I lost my... Come on in. Good to see you.
How you doing?
Hey, very good, how are you?
All right.
Things much quieter now here.
Yeah, I like it like this.
I do too. It's good to see you. Thank you.
And then that's how I got your phone call. And I don't know, did I call you back or whatever, but that's why I was like, I have to tell you about this.
Well, thank you, because that just really seals the deal for me that this is meant to be.
It was actually wild. And I was like, I think I said it to you on the phone at the time. I was like, remember that I have to tell you about this phone call and why it was crazy or whatever.
You did.
Yes, that was.
Yes.
So that's what happened. And dare I say, I don't know, I feel like all of these kind of things is because of you or because of this is all kind of connected. It's really crazy. So I have to sort of explain it to you if you'll allow me.
Please, all ears.
So, I found out about you guys and about Saprea through my victim advocate when I was really kind of at rock bottom and I reported the abuse with my brother. When I moved to Atlanta, I moved to Atlanta in February 2022. And when I moved to Atlanta, I started experiencing really bad CPTSD from the sexual abuse that I had with my brother. And basically, I want to say between ages I say it this way because it started before I can remember. It was my first memory. Literally my first memory is him and I together, him abusing me, basically legitimately. And so the memory that I had, in order to like spare you from the graphic details, is like too advanced for like that to be the first time, if you get me.
Gotcha.
So it's like I started experiencing really bad sort of symptoms and like experiences, I think, around the age that I was when my daughter was that age, if you get me. So it's like my daughter turned like she had just turned 2 in February, and so like around like March, around like February, March, like I just started having like really invasive, sort of like much more graphic memory. And my first memory was like too sexually advanced, if you get me, like to be like, oh, this just started, like, you know. So it was like I knew that, and then I knew from a series of conversations from one conversation that my mom had with me that that memory was like when I was like 3.5 going on 4. So around the time that I turn, my daughter turns 2, I literally just moved to Atlanta. And the whole case and everything was going on in Florida, where I'm from. And so the victim advocate was kind of like trying to hook me up with services and things like that. And really kind of, Jessica, I was kind of really disappointed, because I was at the point of like, I suppose understandably aggressive with like, not like, I was kind of like, why won't anyone just say it? Like, you know, you call a therapist's office and then I'm like, hey, I want a therapist who's like, at that time I wouldn't have been able to have the language of trauma informed and all that kind of stuff. But like for my thing was like, I need somebody who could talk to me about incest or whatever. And the people are like, they can't even like say the word on the phone. And it's like,
you're supposed to be the experts. If you can't say it, how far are we gonna get here?
Do you know what I mean? That's like literally where I was at. So it was kind of like, I was kind of frustrated, but you know what? One thing that gave me a lot of hope was the victim advocate was like, honestly, like she was really, I remember her name was Caroline. I love you. Her name is Caroline. I remember she was so lovely because she was really helpful, and she was basically like, hey, you know, think about juicing celery in the morning, because it like really helps you, you know, like not be depressed, and like here's some other things, and also like here's this group, and maybe if the therapists aren't working, you can join the group and whatever. And so that's like actually how I came to find out about Saprea and to really join the group. And one of the group leaders, and I'll tell you her name because I podcasted with her, so I can, like, you know, it's fine. But Jocelyn, that's how I met her. You know, she was really instrumental in kind of helping me feel like I wasn't alone, in that sense of like understanding that like my path wasn't, you know, it's like horrible, like, so I don't want to be like, it's not bad or whatever, but at the same time, for me, I have found a lot of solace and understanding that I'm not alone, right? And through that process, I heard about retreat, but like I had been going to you guys' groups for like on and off for maybe 18 to 24 months before I ever went to retreat. Like a lot of people who are in the group would be like, oh, I wish I could go back to retreat. And they're all like talking about it and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't need that. I'm not gonna go. Not for me or whatever. And I had kind of like signed up and then like didn't, you know, I was said to you guys like, oh, I can't do it, because there was also like, I was going through a divorce. There was a whole thing, there was a lot of stuff going on. So in the background, I'm sort of thinking maybe I'm having, and then I kind of got into another relationship, and I started sort of realizing that, oh, these things are cyclical. You're kind of repeating patterns here, you know? And especially hearing that from other people in the group, that they're like, yeah, I'm good for like a year, and then
it comes up and rears its ugly head again.
That one, you know? So I started being like, you know, maybe I should go to the retreat thing. Maybe I'll give that another stab. And I knew it had taken a while. You know, the last time I kind of got like approved and like I'd gotten to that stage. So I sent an email and I was basically like, hey, you know, this is where I'm at. I'm going to do it again. Everything's like calm now. Also, I live in Georgia. I'll just drive to that one. I don't have to go out to Utah, blah, blah. You know, can I go? And so then I feel like that was maybe in September. And then I was set up with an appointment to speak to you in December. So I ended up speaking to you in December. I remember I made a big day of it, and I said, okay, I'm gonna psych myself up, you know, for this phone call. with you. And I was like, all right.
Well, you never know what it's going to be. And I believe that because I think it's intense knowing you're going to talk to yet another therapist. How detailed do they want? How detailed are they going to get? Because there is this imbalance with that kind of call. So I can really appreciate you saying, I was going to make a day of this. I'm going to gear myself up because it does. It's nerve-wracking to be on this call, not knowing what they're going to ask, how detailed on your personal information, especially about something that's so hard to talk about. And it's like, okay, am I going to have to bare my soul? And how transparent and to what degree? And then they're going to be, okay, thank you very much, goodbye. Like, thanks so much. Thanks so much for that call. I've got to go suture myself up now for a day. You just don't know, and it's scary to anticipate.
It's very true. And also I think it's something that people don't realize, that like talking about the trauma is like re-traumatizing.
I think just acknowledging it, it's so hard. And I hope this doesn't come the wrong way. I just find it very courageous to be able to acknowledge that, and so to be on a phone call that you're expecting to acknowledge the service that we offer. That's hard. That in and of itself is an intense step to take and do. And so and that's why I really appreciate and can chuckle and laugh with you that, I had to gear myself up for this, because it's an acknowledgement that most people, like you said earlier, a lot of people can't even say.
Well, and I remember we started somehow talking about like spirituality a little bit, and you were like, because I was talking about the timing of like going, because I remember in the back of my mind I kept thinking, I want to go in January. Like that was just like, it was like in my spirit, like to go in January. Like that's what I was like, I'm going home ready to go. And you were basically like, yeah, we're booking for like May. And I was like and I didn't say anything to you about January. I didn't tell you. I was just that's what was like in my spirit. And so then you said to me, you said something, and you were kind of like, I don't know, but from our conversation you sound like you could be spiritually minded, and you can just sort of like set your intention and make the phone call. And I've had people who have told me that like the people say, oh, you can't go on this date, and then they have the date in their mind and that's the date that they went. And you said that to me. You were like, oh, at least like 2 or 3 people have told me that, or something like that. And I always have the consciousness where it's like, what God's done for others, he can do for me. Like, I'm not like, there's no respecter of persons. Like, I'm like, okay, that's all I need to know. I'm like, somebody else did it? I got you. I'm good. We got it. So I took your advice, and I literally sat there in the truck for a second, and I was kind of like, you know what? So I'm gonna call now. I'm gonna do it. That's what I'm gonna do what she said. I'm just gonna call now, and I'm gonna see what happens. And so I get on the phone with, the lady who answers, and she's basically like, oh yeah, like, we can put you in for May, does this day work or whatever? And I was like, well, like, do you have like a cancellation? Can you put me on it? And she was all like, what date do you want me to put you on for the cancellation? And I was like, what are the options? And so then she starts like naming out the dates, and I was just like, basically like, I was like, listen, Linda, I live down the street. I will go to all of those dates. I was like, put me on each and every one of those dates. And she was like, wait, hang on. She comes back and she's like, listen, when do you really want to go? And I told her the date I had in mind, because I looked at the calendar already, and I looked at like my ex and I share custody with my baby, so I already had my date. I was like, this is the date I want to go. I want to go the 29th of January. She's like, all right, fine, that's the date you're going. And I was like, all right. And that's why I hung up and I called you right back.
And that was such a surprise. Kindness, I have to tell you what a beautiful this experience has been, getting to know you and the beauty you have brought, and to just me personally, not just to the work that I do, but to me personally, because I don't think I've ever had anyone call me back so like that, to say, hey, guess what?
You said that too. You were like, whoa.
Yeah. And it happened, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but I usually don't get that half of the story. When I say goodbye, it's, I know my team, I know that they will take care of you, I trust them to treat you with care and love, But to be able to hear that half of the story of how it turned out was just tremendous and so filling to my heart, because I know, so right now I do some clinical calls, I do healing webinars, kind of my primary focus of the position I'm in as a clinician here. But I know that I did work the retreat for close to 4 years as one of the retreat therapists there. And so I get to hear so many stories there, but not that I'm back at kind of stationed at the office. I don't get that as often to know what's the second half of that story. And so it's so just affirming and beautiful for me to hear and have had this time with you to hear it yet again come to fruition. Because yes, what I've already shared with you in that phone call was, I've seen it so many times where when people, much like your story where you said, I've heard about it, but nah, it's not for me. It's not for me, right? We're just like, that's not for me. And it wasn't, right? When you say it's not for you, it's not for you, because you're so in tune, you know it's going to be for you. But when it comes time of, oh, now it might be time for me. People can have this happen so quickly coming to retreat and coming to our services, where it may happen within a matter of weeks or a month. It could be a matter of years before they come. But what has been echoed and taught to me from our clients and our participants has really been that when it's supposed to happen, what they have felt, and this is again, right, because some people, I want to be respectful to those who may not believe in the supposed to or have this additional side to them, or it just happens differently. I don't want to discredit their experience either, but what has been told to me time and time again is that it happened in the time that it needed to. As much as it was as hard to wait, or as fast as it may have been, or as slow as it was, it happened in the time that it was supposed to happen. And that is just beautiful to hear again yet for me from the story that, your experience that, okay, I sent it out and it came back, and it was meant to be in the time that it meant to be. Because I think you also shared with me that we since have closed that location that you went to, and you got in before. Had you waited till May?
We haven't even touched the surface of that story, because that's actually the next few layers of a mind-blowing situation that I have to unpack to you, which brings me to my next thing, that you have to let me tell you how I truly feel about you, which is that you're beautiful, and I'll tell you why. Because like I said, it was really hard for me to talk about it. It's like you said, certain people, like, we're not there yet. And like you said, I do believe that everything is divine. So I'm willing to be cheeky and discredit the people who are like, no, there's no way. I'm like, you'll get there. You just don't understand how to drive yet. It's okay. But that's how I feel about it. And that's just me. So I'm going to say it. But I just feel like, what I noticed for me was that it was a really hard topic. Really, I really don't like to have to talk about it now. I feel like I have to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, it keeps happening, and then that's why I have to talk about it, but I don't really want to talk about it, you know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to sit here and talk about child sexual abuse and incest. It's not a fun topic. We could talk about something better, happier, right? But like, when it happens, and it happened to you, or it happened to somebody you know, or it happened to somebody in your family, or it happened to somebody you're connected with, it becomes a all-encompassing, world-changing thing, for your family, for your situation, for everything, especially the longer that it's kept under the rug. And, just yourself from the work that you do, that it's, has to happen, right? But I struggled a lot with it. And then sometimes I would come to group, and honestly, your videos really made me feel warm and like this feeling inside. I won't pretend. It was just kind of like this warm feeling inside, and I would be like, all right, you reminded me of this therapist that I almost could try to tell about what happened a long time ago. Because it was like, back then I couldn't even open my mouth. I was just like, like blinded like that, like just totally hands over the mouth thing. But I don't know, your spirit, or something about your spirit, made me feel warm anyway. And then when I got to talking to you on the phone, and I said this to you the other day when I called you, whatever, like, I was glad that I didn't know it was you at the time. I didn't know who I was talking to because I didn't realize it was you until I got to retreat. And then I saw the videos again. I was like, no, don't let that be the same Jessica. I was like, that's not Jessica.
Please don't let it be the same Jessica.
I was like, that's hilarious. I was like, we love her. I was like, she's been great from the beginning. I was like, I'm not surprised. I was like, see, that's how God works. I was like that. I wasn't surprised then when I saw it was you. And I was like, you know what? I suppose it's like even more of a layer as to why I want to, gosh, I don't know. It's in my heart. I want to advocate. I want to advocate for you. I want to advocate for you guys and what you're doing. And about the location closing. So I'll say that I do believe that everything is so divine. And there's this, I'm going to try and connect these 3 dots for you as far as this. So I went on this road trip. And I believe that the whole road trip couldn't have ever happened had it not been for that conversation I had with you. I went on this road trip and I explained it to Jessica. Like this whole road trip was actually kind of, again, I'll go back to you. Actually, it's interesting. This goes back to you, Jocelyn. I wouldn't have doggone gone to that retreat had it not been for you and the group. Everybody in group all the time talking about it and how great it was. I don't know, do you remember, but for the longest time I didn't go, and personally I felt like I didn't need to go. That's where I was at. I was like, they can go, I don't need to go. But like, geez, I mean, it was for you. It was from you. You really did inspire me a lot and made me feel comfortable. And I told that to Jessica. I was like, I had been doing group for like maybe 18 to 24 months before I even went to retreat. Like, that's just that's where I was at. And so like, I don't know, I guess
I do remember you telling me that you were just like, you were like, oh, that sounds really nice. I just don't know if that's for me.
That's how I felt. And so I'm like, I just, I didn't, part of me has always wanted to run away from this, so now I'm kind of like at this point where spirit has me confronting it head on and doing it doggone like actually quite publicly. I don't know, and it's a long-winded way of asking this question, Jocelyn, but it's like, how do you deal with the quote-unquote backlash of people being like, oh, well, you should have just stuck with it, or like, well, if that's the truth, then why'd you let him go, or I don't know, all these voices that are, is it shame, is it I don't know, like,
I definitely feel like it is, some, our shame voice or cognitive distortions that conflate and create this narrative about, why whatever actions concerning our abuse aren't good or good enough.
Yeah.
And definitely, if you have people externally, like in the real world, saying like little passive aggressive shit or snarky stuff or things that just aren't helpful or supportive, it just almost like provides confirmation for those somewhat demonic forces, or the ops, as I call them, to like co-sign and be like, yep, see, told you, that kind of thing.
Yes.
The reality is that, it's your journey, and while we want it to be linear, like people always say the journey is never linear, like this shit really is a roller coaster. It's given Six Flags Over Georgia, the Scream Machine, but it's really given, though, now that I think about it, and I've never actually said this before, but I don't even know if this ride is still at Six Flags Over Georgia, but it's one called the damn Mind Bender.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's called the Mind Bender, and I remember years ago when Batman was all the rage. They had converted that section of the park to look like Gotham City, and they changed the name of the Mind Bender temporarily to the Riddler. So that's applicable too. It's not. The answers change to some degree from day to day, but it's kind of like certain aspects of the foundation are the same. It is absolutely natural to be conflicted about reporting your abuser and then, canceling out the claim, because it's like I don't like using the word recanting, right? Because you're not recanting, you're not really saying that what happened didn't happen. You're just simply saying, I don't want to move forward, with these charges or whatever in this way. Now, the truth is sometimes, people that from a legal standpoint identify as victims, the victims will say like, no, it didn't happen, don't worry about it, or I can't prove it, so just never mind. Right? But the bottom line is, it's like, you're not, what matters is that in whatever you do and how you approach things, that you're operating from a place or space of integrity, and you deciding to say like, oh, this process is way too overwhelming mentally and emotionally, and I don't necessarily have the bandwidth for that. Let me retreat. That is normal. So don't beat yourself up from that. The most important part of it is making sure that you get the healing and resources that you need. And one thing you and I didn't discuss was figuring out, I guess, like the status of your relationship with your brother. Ooh. Because that part I honestly don't know. Because that makes a difference in like, it can make a difference in your recovery. For instance, I have a cousin that sexually abused me, and he and I are 6 weeks apart, so we're really more like brother and sister in terms of how we grew up. The truth is, I love him like he was like a brother to me. But it's awkward as hell now that we're adults. Yeah. And we don't talk at all. He avoids me like the plague. and so, but the truth is, there's still a love there for him in terms of like the foundation of what we were to each other in high school. And the abuse is like compartmentalized and this shelf tucked off to the side. Some people might have those same things with their siblings. While my father was also one of my abusers, I don't have a relationship with that bitch at all. Well, he's dead now. But I honestly never had a relationship with him, so I never had that. But the truth is, the majority of people that are survivors like us, 90% of those folks had that experience, unfortunately, at the hands of somebody that they know. A lot of times, somebody that they love. So it's normal to be conflicted about, oh, I want to report, I know I need to report, oh, never mind, it's too hard for me, but it's also just challenging. Then cultural messages in families, it feels like betrayal because of bullshit that people have told you, though it's absolutely not. Yeah. So it's like, whatever you're feeling regarding that, it's all of it. It probably seems like a mashup of all kinds of stuff. It's natural. And I think the first major step you're going to have to take regarding that is giving yourself 1,000% permission to just feel all of those things and address it, for you. Because that's probably one of the most like challenging pieces of it, where you're saying like, oh, I just don't want to feel this way, or I feel like we judge ourselves and we say things like, oh, we shouldn't feel this way. Yeah. And it's like, no, you should, you can.
I'm not sure why this came, but I'm going to read it. So if you saw me glance down, I brought up a quote, and you might be familiar. I think Theodore Roosevelt is attributed to saying this. This is called The Man in the Arena. Are you familiar with this one?
I'm not. Please give it to me. I'm ready. I want it so badly.
And again, I don't know if it's going to make sense, but it's coming to me, so I'm going to go with it. If you look up Brene Brown, she's got some good stuff. She might pump you up really well.
All right.
Before you go, as you're going. And she quotes this one as well, and I love this one personally. I was familiar with it before Brene Brown. But this is what Roosevelt says. He says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, but where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Whoa.
Going back to your hometown, especially if there's opportunity to run into some of the people who have discredited you, who have not believed you, who maybe would shame you for errors because you're in the arena, don't have place and don't get to have choice and voice in your life.